When emergency services personnel arrived at the scene, they were shocked to see a dead body lying in the snow next to a dog who was also dead. A homeless man's frozen body was discovered lying next to the body of his dog in the snow. The dog had been lying on top of the man's body, protecting him from the freezing cold as much as it could. A homeless man, identified only as Marcel, died of cold exposure after spending one night out in the open during a heavy snowstorm in Quebec, Canada. After the news broke, people were enraged and started blaming the police for not intervening in time. But what really happened that night? Let's find out. It was December 10th, 2022, when officers from the service de police de l'agglomération de Laval got a call about a badly decomposed body that had been spotted in the parking lot of an abandoned shopping mall. It was in the early hours of the morning, just before sunrise. The caller said the body looked like it might be homeless, but they weren't entirely sure because it was too dark to see properly. The parking lot in question was behind a former grocery store at the back of the shopping center. There were several homeless shelters nearby, but despite the sub-zero temperatures outside, no one had been willing to go there that night. When the cops arrived, they found a tent made out of cardboard boxes. Next to the tent, they found a pair of dirty shoes. And then they saw him, a homeless man whose skin had already started turning blue from the cold. At first, the officers thought he was merely sleeping, so they tried waking him up, but soon realized he wasn't breathing, and there was nothing they could do to save him. Marcel was pronounced dead at the scene. He had sadly succumbed to cold exposure after spending the night out in the open during a heavy snowstorm. As the officers got closer, they noticed that besides the deceased homeless man, there was another lifeless body in the snow. At first, they couldn't tell what it was. It was covered in snow and barely visible. But once they cleared some of the snow away, they realized it was a dog. The dog had been lying on top of the man's body, trying to shield him from the freezing cold as much as possible. A plastic leash was still attached to the dog's collar. The homeless man's dog had stayed by his side, even in death, refusing to leave him alone in his final moments and beyond. People were outraged when they heard the news, and many took to social media to express their anger. One user wrote, "I'm crying. This is heartbreaking. Rest in peace, Marcel and Puppy. You will forever be in each other's arms now." Another added, "Why didn't the police intervene? Why did they just let him freeze to death? I have a dog." Marcel's story touched countless hearts around the world, and thousands of people wanted answers. What had happened to the homeless man? And why hadn't the police done more to help him? Marcel had been living on the streets for over 2 years. He had lost his job as a truck driver after getting into an accident. He had been unable to work ever since and had nowhere else to turn to for help. So he lived out of his tent in the parking lot of the abandoned mall. He adopted the dog while he was still working as a truck driver. One day, he found the puppy abandoned on the side of the road and could unbear to leave him there. He took the dog home with him and trained him, named him Rambo. The two became best friends and inseparable. However, when Marcel lost his job, things started looking bleak for them. They were struggling to make ends meet and often went hungry. Friends of Marcel claimed the dog never left his side. He was his confidant, his partner in crime, and most importantly, his best friend. The dog helped Marcel through the toughest days and never complained when food was scarce. The pair survived by collecting recyclable items during the day and selling them to scrap dealers. If they didn't have enough money for food, they would visit local soup kitchens to fill their empty stomachs. The homeless man was well known in the area, and most people knew him for his big heart and his even bigger dog. So when the police found the two dead in the snow, the news spread like wildfire, and people were desperate to know how this could have happened. How could someone so beloved by the community die such a horrible and lonely death? According to the service, Marcel called 911 on December at 8:30 p.m. to report that his tent had blown over in the wind. He said he was wet and cold, but insisted he was okay and didn't need any help. The operator stayed on the phone with him for 16 minutes to try and convince him to come inside, but he refused. The operator then asked the police to check on the homeless man, but by the time they reached his tent, it was too late. Marcel was suffering from severe hypothermia and was already unconscious. They called an ambulance, but the homeless man was beyond saving. In a statement, the police said the officers offered the person water and blankets, but he refused them. The officers left after ensuring that the person was conscious and that he was refusing assistance. No other calls were received regarding this same person that evening. Marcel's friends came forward to defend him. They claimed that he would never have called for help unless he desperately needed it. They suspected something else must have happened. The tent may have collapsed in the storm, or he may have gotten disoriented and wandered off, leaving Marcel exposed to the elements and ultimately leading to his death. Following the tragedy, the SPCA put out a statement saying, "We re-aware of the difficult situation and are in contact with the city's animal control services to learn more about the case. We want to thank everyone who has expressed concern for the animals' welfare." Despite the outcry on social media, the police stood by their actions. They insisted they had done everything they could to try and save Marcel. However, they admitted that they had failed to check the body for ID or fingerprints. "We understand that people are upset and have questions," said Constable Nancy Tremblay. "We would like to point out that the officers acted according to the information they had at the time. Given the circumstances, the officers acted appropriately. Marcel's friends disagreed. They claimed the police could have done more. If they had checked his pockets, they would have found his ID and known who he was. They could have called his friends or family to inform them that he had been found and asked them to come to the scene. But instead, they just left him there to die. This claim was later proved true when Marcel's brother came forward and said, "They could have called my mother. She would have gone there right away. She would have taken care of him. That's all we ask. All we want is for people to remember him for who he was. A good guy, a good Samaritan, a hard worker who would give you the shirt off his back." Authorities responded by saying they were unable to identify the homeless man because he had no identification on him, and there were no fingerprints on file. An investigation was launched to determine whether the homeless man's rights had been respected, and if the police had followed the correct procedures. On December, Marcel was laid to rest in a cemetery in Montreal. His dog was buried next to him. The ceremony was attended by hundreds of people who had never met the homeless man, but felt compelled to pay their respects to him and his loyal canine companion. One woman who attended the funeral said, "It's a sad day for the city. The way he died is unacceptable. The system failed him. He didn't deserve to die like that. No one deserves to die like that. I hope his passing makes people more aware and compassionate." Another mourner added, "It's not just about Marcel. It's about every homeless person who sleeps outside in the winter. The whole system failed him. We need more compassion and humanity for these people. We need to treat them better." Since Marcel's death, the city has come under fire for its handling of the homeless crisis. Many have criticized the authorities for not doing enough to protect those who are most vulnerable in society. In a statement, Mayor Vuli Pierre said, "The city is committed to providing support and assistance to vulnerable people in situations of extreme cold. However, it is sometimes difficult to reach these people and offer them the help they need. We are working closely with community organizations to identify innovative solutions to better support people experiencing homelessness. Only time will tell if anything changes."